Chapter 1. The Vanishing Heir. The rain battered the Gothic spires of Ravenwood Manor, a labyrinthine estate perched on the cliffs of Maine. Benoit Blanc, detective extraordinaire, stood in the grand foyer, his powder-blue suit a stark contrast to the gloom. His eyes, sharp as a hawk's, scanned the room. Ornate chandeliers, dusty portraits, and a nervous cluster of heirs clutching brandy snifters. The case? The disappearance of Julian Ravenwood, the family's prodigal son, who vanished from a locked study the night before, leaving only a cryptic note. The truth is in the shadow. Impossible, you say? Blanc drawled, his southern lilt cutting through the tension. A man doesn't just evaporate from a sealed room. Let's unravel this knot, shall we? The family, vultures in velvet, watched him warily. There was Eleanor, the iron-fisted matriarch, Victor, the gambling-addicted brother, and Clara, the youngest, whose trembling hands betrayed more than grief. The local sheriff, a man with a moustache like a tired broom, had already declared it a runaway case. But Blanc smelled a deeper game. He paced the study where Julian was last seen. The room was a fortress. One door, bolted from the inside, windows latched, too narrow for escape. A mahogany desk held the note, written in Julian's florid script. Blanc's fingers danced over the scene, pausing at a faint scratch on the floor near a towering bookshelf. Curious, he muttered, crouching. The scratch led to a seam in the wood, a hidden panel. With a gentle push, the bookshelf creaked, revealing a narrow passage. Gasps erupted behind him. "Stay put, folks," Blanc said, his voice calm but commanding. "This shadow's about to speak." The passage wound into darkness, damp and cold. Blanc's penlight flickered over cobwebs and stone until he reached a concealed room. There, slumped in a chair, was Julian Ravenwood, alive, bound, and gagged. His eyes widened at Blanc's arrival. "Easy now," Blanc said, freeing him. "Who's the architect of this little drama?" Julian coughed, voice hoarse. "Victor. He wanted my inheritance, locked me here to fake my death." Blanc's lips curled into a sly smile. Predictable, yet elegant. Let's spring the trap. Back in the foyer, Blanc gathered the family. Victor shifted, sweat beading on his brow. Blanc held up the note, then revealed a second clue. A smudged fingerprint on the bookshelf, matching Victor's ringed hand. "Victor, darling," Blanc said, "you built a fine cage, but you forgot the spotlight. This print sings your guilt. You hid Julian to claim his share, but shadows always betray." Victor lunged for the door, but the sheriff, now alert, blocked him. Clara sobbed, relieved, while Eleanor's icy facade cracked. Blanc tipped his hat. "Case closed in, 6 hours? Not my record, but it'll do." As the rain eased, Blanc stepped onto the cliffs, lighting a cigar. Another impossible case, unravelled at lightning speed. But somewhere another shadow waited. Chapter 2. The Shadow's Gambit. The fog clung to Ravenwood Manor like a conspirator, shrouding its turrets as Benoit Blanc stood on the cliffside, the ember of his cigar glowing against the dawn. Victor Ravenwood's arrest had been a neat bow on a messy package, but Julian's words, "Shadows always betray," gnawed at him. A man didn't lock his brother in a secret room for mere inheritance. There was a larger game afoot, and Blanc's blood hummed with the thrill of it. He flicked the cigar into the mist, his mind already slicing through the haze of lies. Inside, the manor buzzed with unease. The family, minus Victor, gathered in the dining hall, their faces pale under the flicker of a dying chandelier. Eleanor, Ravenwood, the matriarch, sat at the head, her silver hair pinned like a crown, eyes drilling into Blanc as he entered. Clara, the youngest, clutched a teacup, her knuckles white. Julian, freshly freed, slouched in a chair, his bravado dimmed. The sheriff, now a reluctant disciple of Blanca's, hovered near the door, scribbling notes. "Mr. Blanc," Eleanor said, her voice sharp as cut glass, "you've done your job. Victor's in cuffs. Why linger?" Blanc adjusted his bow tie, a faint smile curling his lips. "Ma'am, with respect, this case has more layers than a Vidalia onion. Victor's stunt was a sideshow. Someone or something else is pulling strings. Julian, care to elaborate on those shadows you mentioned?" Julian shifted, eyes darting to Eleanor. I meant Victor. He's always been shady." "Shady don't build secret rooms," Blanc said, pacing. "Shady don't leave notes like, 'The truth is in the shadow.' No, sir, we're dealing with a mind that plays chess, while the rest of us are stuck on checkers." Clara's teacup clattered. "What are you saying? There's more." Blanc's gaze softened, but his words cut. "I'm saying this manor's got secrets older than that storm outside, and I reckon they're tied to why Julian was caged like a canary." The room fell silent, save for the wind howling through cracked windows. Blanc's instinct screamed. The manor itself was a clue. He excused himself, slipping into the library, where dust motes danced in slanted light. The walls groaned under the weight of leather-bound tomes, but it was the fireplace that caught his eye. A blackened moor with a faint carving. A crescent moon, identical to one he'd glimpsed in the hidden passage. He ran his fingers over the stone, feeling a click. A panel slid open, revealing a ledger, its pages yellowed but meticulous. Names, dates, sums, hundreds of thousands of dollars funneled to an entity called the Crescent Syndicate. Blanc's pulse quickened. This wasn't a family squabble. It was a conspiracy. Back in the dining hall, he laid the ledger on the table, watching the family like a hawk. "Care to explain this, Mrs. Ravenwood? Your name's all over it." Eleanor's composure cracked, but only for a heartbeat. "That's private. Old business dealings." "Old business don't bleed into kidnapping," Blanc said. "This Crescent Syndicate, same symbol as the one in your study, Julian. Same as the carving by the fireplace. Someone's been funding something nasty, and I'd wager Victor was just a pawn." Clara gasped, pointing at the ledger. "That's father's handwriting. He died 10 years ago." "Didn't he?" The sheriff coughed. "Officially, yeah. Heart attack. But there were rumours. Folks said he was mixed up with bad types." Blanc's mind raced. A dead patriarch, a shadowy syndicate, a hidden room. The pieces were forming a picture, but the edges were jagged. He needed more. "Sheriff, pull every record on old man Ravenwood. Clara, you're with me. Let's take a walk." Clara hesitated, then followed Blanc through the manor's twisting corridors. Her fear was genuine, but Blanc sensed she knew more than she let on. They stopped at a portrait gallery, where stern Ravenwood ancestors glared down. One painting, a man with Julian's eyes, bore a crescent moonpin on his lapel. "Your father," Blanc said. "He didn't die, did he?" Clara's voice trembled. I saw him 2 years ago in Boston. He told me to stay quiet. Said the family was in danger." Blanc nodded, filing it away. A living patriarch, pulling strings from the shadows. But why fake his death? And why target Julian? Their walk led to the attic, a maze of crates and cobwebs. Blanc's penlight swept the gloom, landing on a locked chest. The lock was new, gleaming against the dust. He knelt, pulling a hairpin from his pocket. A trick learned from a New Orleans locksmith. The chest creaked open, revealing letters, maps, and a photograph. Eleanor, younger, shaking hands with a man in a crescent moon tie. The back read, "Crescent Syndicate, 1995. The deal is sealed." "Clara," Blanc said, "your mother's been playing a long game. But for what?" Before Clara could answer, a floorboard creaked behind them. Blanc spun, but too late. A figure in black swung a candelabrum, clipping his shoulder. He stumbled, pain flaring, as Clara screamed. The figure fled, leaving a single clue, a dropped cufflink engraved with a crescent moon. Blanc gritted his teeth, steadying himself. "No time for naps, darling. We're getting close." They returned to the dining hall, where Eleanor and Julian waited, oblivious to the attack. Blanc held up the cufflink, his voice low. "Someone in this house is working for the syndicate, and they don't take kindly to snooping." Eleanor's eyes narrowed. "You're stirring trouble, Mr. Blanc. Leave this alone." "Trouble's my middle name," he quipped, though his shoulder throbbed. "Sheriff, lock down the manor. Nobody leaves." The next hours were a whirlwind. Blanc pored over the ledger, cross-referencing names with the sheriff's records. The Crescent Syndicate wasn't just a business. It was a network. Smuggling, extortion, even whispers of assassination. Old Man Ravenwood, presumed dead, had been its architect, and Eleanor his silent partner. But why hide Julian? And who was the attacker? Clara, shaken but resolute, offered a lead. "There's a boathouse by the cliffs. Father used to meet people there. Strange men at night." Blanc nodded. The boathouse was a gamble, but his gut said it held answers. Under cover of dusk, he and Clara crept through the fog, the ocean's roar masking their steps. The boathouse loomed, its windows dark. Inside, the air was thick with salt and secrets. Blanc's light caught a map pinned to the wall, shipping routes marked with crescent moons. A ledger, too, newer than the one in the manor, listing payments to a Mr. E. "Eleanor?" Clara whispered. "Or someone else," Blanc said. "Someone who knows we're here." A creak sounded outside. Blanc doused the light, pulling Clara behind a crate. Footsteps crunched, deliberate. A voice, low, male, muttered, "He's too close! End it!" Blanc's heart pounded, but his mind was a steel trap. He whispered to Clara, "Stay low. We're setting a stage." Using a rope from the crate, he rigged a trap, a clattering bucket to draw the stranger. When the bucket fell, the man cursed, rushing in. Blanc sprang, tackling him. A brief struggle, and the sheriff, alerted by Clara's earlier call, arrived to cuff the man. A hired thug, his cufflink matching the one from the attic. "Who's Mr. E?" Blanc demanded, his drawl icy. The thug spat. "You'll never touch him. He's a ghost." Blanc smiled. "Ghosts leave footprints, friend." Back at the manor, the pieces snapped together. The thug's phone held texts from E, ordering Julian's kidnapping to destabilize the family. But the real target was the syndicate's revival, Eleanor's plan to reclaim power, using Julian as leverage. Victor had been a patsy, set up to take the fall. Blanc gathered the family at midnight, the storm raging outside. He laid out the evidence, the ledger, the cufflinks, the boathouse map. Eleanor, you played a dangerous hand. You wanted the syndicate back, but you needed Julian out of the way. Why? Because he knew your husband was alive. Eleanor's face was stone. You have no proof. Blanc held up the photograph. This says otherwise. And Clara's testimony, seeing her father in Boston, seals it. You're not just a widow. You're a kingpin. Julian stood, voice shaking. Mother, is it true? Before Eleanor could answer, the manor's lights flickered. A gunshot cracked from the hall. The sheriff bolted, returning with grim news. The thug was dead, silenced by an unseen shooter. The room erupted in chaos, but Blanc was already moving, his mind racing. The crescent moon symbols, the hidden rooms, the ledger, they all pointed to one truth. The syndicate's heart was in the manor. He led Clara and Julian to the basement, where an old wine cellar hid a steel door, marked with, you guessed it, a crescent moon. Inside was a vault, files, gold, weapons, and a laptop, still warm. Blanc hacked it, another New Orleans trick, finding emails from E to Eleanor. The final one read, Blanc's too close, burn it all. Clara gasped. Burn the manor? Blanc nodded. He's desperate, but we're faster. They raced upstairs, the smell of smoke already rising. Eleanor was gone, the sheriff unconscious, from a blow. Blanc rallied Julian and Clara, guiding them through choking haze to the cliffs. Behind them, flames licked the manor's spires. In the chaos, Blanc spotted a figure, Eleanor, fleeing to a waiting boat. But another shadow moved. A dead man, his face obscured, holding a gun. Mr. E. Blanc shouted, drawing his attention. Endgame, sir. Care to show your face? He fired, but Blanc dove, shielding Clara. The bullet grazed his arm, blood soaking his sleeve. Julian tackled the man, buying time. The sheriff, groggy but upright, cuffed him. His face, revealed, was a stranger's, yet his ring bore the crescent moon. It's not one man, Blanc panted, clutching his arm. It's a title, and Eleanor's the queen. The boat was gone. Eleanor vanished into the fog. The manor burned, a pyre of secrets. Blanc stood on the cliffs, rain washing the blood from his hands. Julian and Clara were safe. Chapter 3. The Tide of Secrets. The dawn broke over the smouldering ruins of Ravenwood Manor, its spires reduced to charred claws against the main sky. Benoit Blanc stood on the cliffs, his suit rumpled, blood crusted on his sleeve from the graze of Mr. E's bullet. The sea churned below, spitting foam like it knew the secrets he chased. Eleanor Ravenwood had slipped into the fog, her boat a ghost on the horizon. The man they'd caught, another Mr. E, or so he claimed, was just a cog in the Crescent Syndicate's machine, his ring a taunting echo of the manor's carvings. Blanc's cigar glowed, its smoke curling like the questions in his mind. Who was the real Mr. E? And why was old man Ravenwood, supposedly dead, still pulling strings? Clara and Julian huddled nearby, shaken but alive, their eyes pleading for answers. The sheriff, nursing a concussion, barked orders to firefighters dousing the manor's remains. Blanc's shoulder ached, but pain was just fuel. "Julian," he drawled, "you said your father met strange men at the boathouse. Any names? Places?" Julian rubbed his wrists, still raw from his binds. "He mentioned Port Harrow, a town maybe an hour south. Said it was where deals got done." Blanc's eyes narrowed. Port Harrow, a smuggler's haven, if the sheriff's mutterings were true. The boathouse map had marked it, its crescent moon symbol a beacon. "Sheriff, you got a car? We're taking a field trip." The drive to Port Harrow was a blur of pine and mist, the sheriff's cruiser rattling over potholed roads. Clara insisted on coming, her fear now laced with defiance. "I saw father in Boston," she said, voice steady. "If he's alive, I need to know why he left us." Funk nodded, his mind passing her words. A father who faked his death, a mother running a syndicate, a son kidnapped to keep him quiet. Port Harrow was no random dot on a map. It was the syndicate's pulse. The town greeted them with salt-crusted docks and sullen faces. Fishing boats bobbed beside rusted warehouses, their hulls hiding more than cod. Blanc's nose twitched. The air reeked of secrets. They parked near a dive bar, the moon's anchor, its sign a faded crescent. "Stay sharp," Blanc told Clara and Julian. "This place don't take kindly to tourists." Inside the bar was a haze of smoke and whiskey. Dock workers glared over their pints, their hands calloused from ropes. Or worse, Blanc, undaunted, sauntered to the counter, his bow tie a deliberate provocation. "Evening," he said to the bartender, a woman with a scar slicing her brow. "I'm looking for a friend. Likes crescent moons, does business in the shadows." Eyes flicked to a back door, then hardened. "No friends here, mister. Drink or leave." Blanc slid a 20 across the bar, his smile disarming. "Keep the change. Just point me to someone who knows Port Harrow's underbelly." She pocketed the bill, jerking her chin toward a man in a corner booth. He was lean, his face weathered like driftwood, a crescent moon tattoo peeking from his sleeve. Blanc approached, the sheriff and Clara trailing. Julian hung back, eyes scanning the room. "Mind if I sit?" Blanc asked, not waiting for an answer. "Name's Benoit Blanc. I'm tracking a group called the Crescent Syndicate. Word is they run through here." The man, Hank, by his jacket's embroidery, sipped his beer, unfazed. "You're fishing in deep water, friend. Syndicate's a ghost story." "Ghosts leave footprints," Blanc said, leaning in. "Like that tattoo, or the shipments on your docks that don't make the logs." Hank's jaw tightened, but a flicker of fear betrayed him. "You don't know what you're messing with." "Then educate me," Blanc pressed, his drawl low. "Before someone else gets hurt." Hank glanced at the bar, then scrawled an address on a napkin. "Warehouse, 17 midnight. But you didn't hear it from me." Blanc pocketed the napkin, his pulse quickening. A lead, brittle but real. As they left, Clara whispered, "That man was scared, like he knew father." "Or someone worse," Blanc said. The Crescent Syndicate wasn't just a family affair. It was a hydra, and Port Harrow was one of its heads. They spent the day canvassing the docks. Blanc's questions met, with silence or threats. The sheriff pulled records. Warehouse 17 was leased to a shell company, its paper trail looping back to, surprise, Ravenwood Enterprises. By dusk, Blanc's board was filling. Eleanor's escape, the boathouse map, the crescent symbols, and, now, a warehouse. But the real Mr. E remained a shadow. At 11 p.m. they staked out Warehouse 17, a hulking structure by the pier. Fog cloaked the docks, muffling the creak of cranes. Blanc, Clara, and the sheriff crouched behind crates, the air thick with oil and salt. Julian stayed in the cruiser, too rattled to join. Blanc's penlight traced the warehouse's rusted door, where a crescent moon was scratched into the metal. "Clara," Blanc whispered, "you see anything odd about that door?" She squinted. "It's new. The lock's shiny, not rusted like the rest." Blanc nodded. "Someone's been keeping house." He picked the lock, another New Orleans trick, and they slipped inside. The warehouse was a maze of crates, their labels faded but legible, medical supplies fragile. Blanc pried one open, revealing not bandages but bricks of cash, bundled tight. Another held vials, their liquid glinting under his light. Drugs? Worse? A noise, a metallic clank, froze them. Blanc doused the light, pulling Clara and the sheriff behind a stack. Footsteps echoed, deliberate. A flashlight beam swept the dark, pausing inches from their hiding spot. Blanc's hand tightened on his pocket knife, a last resort. The beam moved on, and a voice hissed, "Check the shipment. E wants it moved tonight." Blanc's heart raced. "E, here or close?" He signalled the sheriff, who nodded, gun ready. Clara's eyes were wide but fierce. She was in this now. They crept closer, peering through a gap in the crates. Two men loaded a truck, their jackets marked with crescent moons. But it was the third figure that stopped Blanc cold. A woman, her silver hair glinting. Eleanor Ravenwood, directing the operation like a conductor. Blanc whispered to the sheriff, "We need her alive! She's the key!" Before they could move, a shout rang out. Julian, damn fool, had followed them, tripping over a crate. The men spun, guns drawn. Eleanor's eyes locked on Blanc's hiding spot, a smile curling her lips. "Well, well, the detective!" Chaos erupted. The sheriff fired a warning shot, scattering the men. Clara tackled Julian, dragging him to cover. Blanc charged Eleanor, dodging a crate hurled by one of her goons. She was fast, slipping toward a side exit, but Blanc was faster. He cut her off, his voice steel. "Game's over, Mrs. Ravenwood. Where's your husband?" Eleanor laughed, cold as the tide. "You think you've won. You're a pawn, Blanc. The board's bigger than you know." She lunged, a knife flashing from her sleeve. Blanc sidestepped, twisting her wrist until the blade clattered. The sheriff cuffed her, but her eyes burned with defiance. "He's coming. For you," she spat. "And he doesn't miss." The goons fled, the truck roaring into the fog. Blanc searched Eleanor, finding a burner phone with one contact. E. No number, just a symbol, a crescent moon. The vials in the crates were unmarked, but their weight suggested something deadly. Blanc bagged one for the feds. Back at the sheriff's station, Eleanor sat silent, her lawyer already en route. The sheriff ran the warehouse's records, tying it to more shell companies. Clara and Julian, shaken, pored over the boathouse map, now marked with new locations: Boston, New York, London. The syndicate was global. Blanc paced, his mind a storm. Eleanor's taunt, "The board's bigger," echoed. The real Mr. E wasn't here, but his shadow loomed. And old man Ravenwood. Clara's Boston sighting placed him in the game, alive and scheming. A deputy burst in, face pale. "Sir, the cruiser. Someone slashed the tires, left this." He held up a note scrawled in red. "Stop digging, Blanc, or you're next." Clara gasped, but Blanc's smile was grim. "Well now, that's a proper invitation." He lit a cigar, staring at the note's crescent moon watermark. Port Harrow was a battle, not the war. The syndicate's roots ran deep, and Ravenwood's. Patriarch was out there watching. Blanc's blood sang with the chase. He'd solve this case, fast, like always. But the tide was rising, and the next wave would be a killer. Chapter 4. The Ghost in the Frame. The Port Harrow Sheriff's Station smelled of stale coffee and damp wood, its fluorescent lights buzzing like a swarm of doubts. Benoit Blanc leaned against a desk, his powder-blue suit creased from the nights. Chaos, a fresh bandage on his arm where Mr. E's bullet had grazed him. Eleanor Ravenwood sat in a holding cell, her silver hair immaculate, her silence louder than the storm outside. The note from the slashed cruiser tires, "Stop digging, Blanc, or you're next," lay on the desk, its crescent moon watermark mocking him. Clara and Julian Ravenwood slumped in chairs, their faces etched with fear and betrayal. The sheriff, still rubbing his bruised head, typed up reports, muttering about federal backup that wouldn't arrive till dawn. Blanc's cigar was unlit, twirling in his fingers as his mind carved through the case. Eleanor was a queenpin, no doubt, but the real Mr. E, the syndicate's puppet master, was still a shadow. The boathouse map, the warehouse cache, the vials of unknown liquid, and Clara's sighting of her dead father in Boston 2 years ago pointed to a conspiracy that stretched far beyond Maine. Port Harrow was a skirmish. Boston was the battlefield. "Clara," Blanc said, his drawl soft but piercing, "tell me about Boston again. Every detail. The street, the time, the look in your father's eyes." Clara's hands trembled, but her voice held. "It was October 2 years ago. Beacon Hill, near the Common. I was at a cafe, and there he was, father, in a grey coat, alive. He looked haunted, said to keep quiet, that the family was in danger. Then he vanished into the crowd." Blanc nodded, filing it away. "Beacon Hill, old money, older secrets. And you, Julian? Ever hear your father mention Boston?" Julian's jaw tightened. "Only once. Said it was where the real work happened." "I thought he meant business deals." "Business don't leave death certificates unsigned," Blanc said, tapping the desk. The sheriff had pulled old man Ravenwood's records. A heart attack, no autopsy, a closed casket. Too neat, like a bow on a bomb. "Sheriff, book us a flight to Boston. We're chasing a ghost." The sheriff blinked. "You, me, and them?" He nodded at Clara and Julian. "They're in this, like it or not," Blanc said. "Eleanor's lawyer'll have her out by noon. We move now." By sunrise, they were airborne, a puddle jumper rattling over the Atlantic. Clara stared out the window. her reflection pale. Julian clutched the boathouse map, its Boston marker circled in red. Blanc studied the note from Port Harrow, its red ink smudged but deliberate. The Crescent Syndicate wasn't just smuggling or drugs. It was power, raw and global. And Ravenwood's patriarch, alive or not, was its architect. Boston greeted them with a chill drizzle, its cobblestone streets slick underfoot. Beacon Hill's brownstones loomed, their windows like eyes that had seen too much. Blanc led the group to the cafe Clara described, a cosy spot called the Gilded Bean. The barista, a kid with a nose ring, remembered Clara's story after a 20 and a smile. "Yeah, I saw an older guy, grey coat, maybe 2 years back. He met someone, a woman sharp-dresser. They argued, then left." "Describe her," Blanc pressed. "Tall, dark hair, maybe 40. Had a pin, a crescent moon." Blanc's pulse quickened. Another player, tied to the syndicate. He thanked the kid, then turned to Clara. "Your father's meeting folks who don't like publicity. We need his trail." They canvassed Beacon Hill. Blanc's questions met with shrugs or glares. But at a newsstand, an old vendor squinted at Ravenwood's photo. "Seen him? Not lately, but he used to hit the Athenaeum. Private library, members, only, always with a briefcase." The Boston Athenaeum was a fortress of knowledge, its marble halls whispering history. Blanc bluffed their way in, his charm disarming a librarian named Miss Greer. "We're researching a family legacy," said, flashing a smile. "The Ravenwoods, old Boston stock." Greer's eyes flickered. "Ravenwood, yes, I recall a gentleman. Used the rare books room, always reserved it. Left a donation, generous, but odd." "Odd how?" Blanc asked, leaning in. "He paid in cash, and once he left a note in a book. I kept it." She retrieved a slip of paper from a locked drawer. "The frame holds the truth. Trust no one." The handwriting matched Julian's cryptic note from the manor. Blanc's mind sparked. The frame. A clue, literal or not. "Can we see that room?" The rare books room was a vault of leather and dust, its walls lined with portraits. Blanc's eyes locked on one, a stern man, not Ravenwood, but wearing a crescent moon tupin. The frame was ornate, its edges worn. He ran his fingers along it, feeling a catch. A click, and the frame swung open, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside, a flash drive labelled Crescent Protocols. Clara gasped. "Father's work!" "Or his confession," Blanc said, pocketing it. But as they turned to leave, the lights flickered. Footsteps echoed. Too many, too fast. Blanc shoved Clara and Julian behind a shelf, the sheriff drawing his gun. Miss Greer screamed as 3 figures in black burst in, their crescent moon cufflinks glinting. "Hand it over, Blanc," the leader growled, his voice muffled by a mask. "The drive." Blanc's smile was ice. "Y'all need to work on your entrances. Too predictable." He tossed a book, distracting them, and dove for cover. The sheriff fired, clipping one thug's shoulder. Clara, braver now, hurled a lamp, shattering it on another's head. Julian froze, useless. Blanc tackled the leader, wrestling for his gun. A shot grazed the ceiling, plaster raining. The thugs fled, leaving their leader pinned. Blanc ripped off the mask. A stranger, mid-40s, with a crescent tattoo on his neck. "Who's he?" Blanc demanded, twisting his arm. The man laughed, blood on his teeth. "He's everywhere. You're already dead." The sheriff cuffed him, but Blanc's gut twisted. The drive was a prize, but they'd been tracked. Someone knew their moves. He plugged the drive into a library computer. Password cracking with a trick from a hacker friend. Files flooded the screen. Blueprints, bank accounts, names, politicians, CEOs, generals. The Crescent protocols weren't just crime. They were control, a shadow government. One file mentioned Boston's old subway tunnels. A meet scheduled. "Tonight, we're crashing a party," Blanc said, ejecting the drive. "Sheriff, get this to the feds, but trust no one. Clara, Julian, you're with me." The tunnels were a labyrinth beneath Boston, damp and forgotten. Blanc's penlight cut through the dark, Clara and Julian close behind. The air was thick, the silence heavier. At a junction, they found it. A steel door, crescent moon etched deep. Blanc picked the lock, heart pounding. Inside was a chamber, lit by flickering screens. Men and women in suits, their faces obscured, debated in hushed tones. At the centre stood a man, grey coat, Ravenwood's eyes. Clara stifled a sob. "Father!" He turned, unperturbed. "Clara, you shouldn't be here." Blanc stepped forward, voice steel. "Mr. Ravenwood, I presume. Care to explain why you're playing Lazarus with a syndicate?" Ravenwood's smile was thin. "You're good, Blanc, but this is bigger than you. The syndicate keeps order. Without us, chaos." "Order don't kidnap sons or burn manors," Blanc snapped. "Who's he?" Ravenwood's eyes darkened. "Is an idea, and ideas don't die." Before Blanc could press, an alarm blared. Gas hissed from vents, acrid and heavy. Clara coughed. Julian collapsed. Blanc grabbed them, dragging them back through the door as Ravenwood vanished into a side tunnel. The chamber's screens flickered, showing one word: checkmate. They stumbled to the surface, gasping in the rain. Clara clutched Blanc's arm. "He's alive, my father's alive, and running the show," Blanc said, coughing. The drive was safe, but the gas had slowed him. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Nice try, Blanc. Boston's just the start." A crescent moon emoji punctuated it. The sheriff met them, the drive now with the FBI. But Blanc's mind was elsewhere. Ravenwood was Mr. E, or close to it. The protocols were a map to power, and Boston was a node. London, New York, more cities, more shadows. As sirens wailed, Blanc lit a cigar, the rain soaking his suit. The syndicate was a beast, and he'd just kicked its nest. He'd solve this case, fast, like always, but the frame was closing, and the ghost was still in play. Chapter 5. The Mirror's Edge. The rain-slicked streets of Boston gleamed under sodium lights as Benoit Blanc stood outside the subway tunnel's mouth, his breath fogging in the cold. Clara Ravenwood shivered beside him, her eyes haunted by the sight of her father, alive, unrepentant, a spectre running the Crescent Syndicate. Julian, useless in the gas-filled chamber, leaned against a lamppost, coughing. The sheriff had rushed the flash drive with the Crescent protocols to the FBI, but Blanc's gut screamed. The feds were too slow, and the syndicate was too deep. The text on his phone, "Nice try, Blanc. Boston's just the start." Burned in his mind, its crescent moon emoji a taunt. Old Man Ravenwood was a piece of the puzzle, but Mr. E, or the idea of E, was the frame. Blanc lit a cigar, the ember a lone star in the drizzle. The boathouse map, now creased in Julian's pocket, marked New York next. The protocol's files, blueprints, bank accounts, names, hinted at a meeting in Manhattan tomorrow night. "Clara," Blanc said, his drawl steady, "your father's playing a global game. New York's the next square. You in?" Her jaw set. "He left us to rot. I'm in." Julian nodded, reluctant but tethered to his sister. The sheriff, still rattled, offered to liaise with the NYPD. Blanc agreed, but trust was thin. E's reach was long, and that note from Port Harrow, "Stop digging or you're next," wasn't idle. They caught a red-eye to LaGuardia, the plane's hum a backdrop to Blanc's racing thoughts. The syndicate wasn't just crime, it was a shadow empire, and New York was its crown jewel. Manhattan pulsed with neon and ambition, its skyscrapers clawing the dawn. Blanc led Clara and Julian to a safe house in Hell's Kitchen, a dingy walk-up courtesy of a PI friend. The protocols, files copied to Blanc's burner laptop, revealed a name: the Obsidian Club, a private venue in Midtown, linked to a syndicate front. The meeting was tonight, 10 p.m., in a penthouse suite. Blanc's nose twitched. This was no back-alley deal. This was power, dressed in tuxedos. "Clara, Julian," Blanc said, spreading the map on a rickety table. "We're crashing a gala. Obsidian Club's members only, but I've got a knack for invitations." He called his PI friend Frankie, a wiry ex-cop with a knack for fake IDs. By noon, they had passes. Blanc as a Southern art dealer, Clara as his assistant, Julian as a silent investor. The sheriff, now in New York, would shadow them with NYPD backup, but Blanc waved off heavy cavalry. "He smells cops like sharks smell blood," he said. "We go light. We go fast." The Obsidian Club was a monolith of glass and steel, its lobby dripping with chandeliers. Blanc, in a borrowed tux, moved like he owned the place. Clara and Julian, trailing. Her black dress hid a recorder. His suit hid nerves. The elevator to the penthouse hummed, each floor a tick of the clock. Blanc's mind churned. Ravenwood's escape, the protocol's names, senators, oligarchs, a UN envoy. The syndicate was rewriting the board, and this gala was checkmate. The penthouse was a sea of wealth. Gowns, cigars, laughter, masking greed. Blanc scanned faces, spotting crescent moonpins on lapels, subtle but there. A woman, tall with dark hair, caught his eye. The same description as Ravenwood's Boston contact. She sipped champagne, her pin glinting. Blanc nudged Clara. "Keep an eye on her. She's syndicate." Before they could move, a man took the stage, his voice smooth as silk. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Tonight we shape the future." His ring bore a crescent moon. Blanc's pulse spiked. Not Ravenwood, but close. Clara whispered, "That's Victor Salazar, tech mogul. Father mentioned him once." Blanc filed it away. Salazar's speech dripped with coded phrases. New order, hidden tides, syndicate dogma. Blanc mingled, his charm disarming tycoons, while his eyes hunted clues. At a bar, He overheard a whisper. "The mirror's ready! Ease orders! Mirror!" Like the frame in Boston. A pattern. He slipped into a side hall, finding a locked door with a crescent moon keypad. Clara and Julian followed, her recorder catching every sound. Blanc cracked the code, crescent, and they entered a private office. A mirror dominated one wall, its frame carved with moons. Blanc pressed it, revealing a safe. Inside, documents, a vial like the ones in Port Harrow, and a photo, Ravenwood, Salazar, and the dark-haired woman dated last month. "Gotcha," Blanc muttered, but footsteps cut him short. He shoved the documents into his jacket as the dark-haired woman entered, a gun in her hand. "Mr. Blanc," she said, her accent crisp, "you're persistent." "And you're late for introductions," Blanc quipped, stepping in front of Clara. "Care to share your name or just your aim?" She smirked. "Call me Lena. Hand over the documents." Julian, finding courage, threw a paperweight. It missed, but Lena flinched, giving Blanc an opening. He tackled her, the gun skidding. Clara grabbed it, trembling but firm. Lena laughed, even pinned. "You're pawns. The mirror's already moving." Sirens wailed outside. "NYPD too soon." Blanc's gut sank. A setup. He cuffed Lena to a chair with his belt, grabbing the vial and photo. "Clara, Julian, out, now!" The penthouse was chaos, guests fleeing as cops stormed in. Salazar was gone, the woman's warning. "The mirror's moving," ringing in Blanc's ears. They reached the safe house, the sheriff cursing a botched raid. The documents detailed Project Mirror, a syndicate plan to blackmail world leaders using the protocol's data, with the vials as a bioweapon failsafe. New York was the launch. London next. Blanc's phone buzzed. "You can't stop the tide, Blanc." Another crescent moon emoji. He lit a cigar, the safe house's dim light casting shadows. The photos showed Ravenwood's eyes, but something was off. Too young, too sharp. A double? A son? Clara clutched the vial, her voice fierce. "Father's in London. I know it." Blanc nodded, smoke curling. "Then we're booking a flight. He's playing chess, but I'm playing poker, and I'm calling his bluff." As they packed, a news alert flashed. Salazar's private jet had crashed. No survivors. Convenient. Blanc's cigar paused. The syndicate was cleaning house, and London was a trap. He'd solve this case, fast, like always, but the mirror was cracking and the edge was sharp. Chapter 6. The London Gambit. The safe house in Hell's Kitchen buzzed with tension, its cracked walls no shield against the Crescent Syndicate's reach. Benoit Blanc stood by the window, the New York skyline a jagged puzzle reflecting his thoughts. The vial from the Obsidian Club, its liquid glinting like poison, sat on the table beside the photo of Old Man Ravenwood, Victor Salazar, and the mysterious Lena. Clara Ravenwood paced, her eyes burning with the image of her father in Boston's tunnels, unapologetic and alive. Julian, ever the weak link, slumped on a couch, clutching the boathouse map, its London marker a red wound. The news of Salazar's jet crash, too clean, too convenient, hung heavy, a syndicate erasure. Blanc's phone, still holding the taunting text, "You can't stop the tide, Blanc," was a silent dare. The Crescent Protocols had named London as the next node, and Blanc's blood sang with the chase. He lit a cigar, smoke curling like a question mark. "Clara, your father's in London, you're sure? Any haunts he favoured? Clubs, pubs, shadows?" Clara's voice was steel. "He loved the old city. Mentioned a place, the Silver Crescent, a private club near the Thames. Said it was where kings were made." Blanc's eyes narrowed. "The Silver Crescent. The protocols listed it as a syndicate hub, a summit set for tomorrow night. Julian, you holding out on me? Your father ever drop London hints?" Julian shifted uneasy. "Once. Said London was the heart. Didn't explain." "Heart's a fine place to cut," Blanc said, tapping the map. The sheriff, now coordinating, with Interpol via a secure line, confirmed the NYPD had Lena in custody, but she was silent. Her crescent tattoo a dead end. The FBI had the protocols, but Blanc trusted no one. The syndicate's tendrils reached too far. "We're booking a flight. London's calling, and I aim to answer." The red-eye to Heathrow was a blur of turbulence and doubt. Clara studied the photo. Her father's eyes too young, too sharp. A double, a trick. Julian slept, useless. Blanc pored over the documents from New York, detailing Project Mirror, blackmail, bioweapons, a new world order. The vial's liquid was untested, but its presence screamed leverage. His shoulder, still sore from Port Harrow, ached less than his need for answers. Who was Mr. E? Ravenwood, or something bigger? London dawned grey, its fog a shroud over the Thames. Blanc led Clara and Julian to a flat in Soho, courtesy of a Scotland Yard contact, D.I. Patel, a no-nonsense cop with a scar from a syndicate bust gone wrong. Patel met them at dawn, his dossier thick. "The Silver Crescent's untouchable," he said, voice low. "MPs, bankers, spies, they're all members. We've tried raiding it, always tipped off." Blanc smiled sly. "Then we don't raid, we waltz in." Patel arranged invites, forging Blanc as a Kentucky bourbon magnate, Clara as his niece, Julian as a silent partner. The sheriff stayed back, liaising with Interpol, his NYPD badge useless here. Blanc prepped them in the flat, his voice a blade. "This ain't New York's glitz. London's old blood, old lies. Watch for crescent moons, pins, rings, tattoos. And Clara, that recorder's your weapon." The Silver Crescent loomed over, the Thames, its Gothic facade a mask for modern sin. The summit was a black tie affair, the air thick with perfume and power. Blanc, in a tailored suit, moved like a shark, his bow tie a deliberate quirk. Clara's gown hid her recorder. Julian's tux hid his fear. The crowd was a who's who of the untouchable. Lords, CEOs, a Russian oligarch with a crescent cufflink. Blanc's eyes locked on a man at the bar. Grey-haired, Ravenwood's build. But his face was wrong. Surgical, almost. Clara whispered, "That's not father." "Or it's a new mask," Blanc said, heart racing. The man's ring bore a crescent, moon, and his glance at Blanc was too long, too knowing. Before they could approach, a woman took the stage. Lena, free, her dark hair gleaming. Interpol had lost her in transit. Blanc cursed under his breath. "Ladies and gentlemen," Lena purred, "tonight we unveil the future. Project Mirror begins. the crowd murmured, crescent pins glinting. Blanc nudged Clara toward a side door, marked with a moon. Julian trailed, muttering about leaving. Blanc cracked the lock. A New Orleans trick never failed, and they slipped into a private lounge. A mirror, like New York's, dominated the wall, its frame etched with crescents. Blanc pressed it, revealing a server room, screens flickering with data. Mirror Phase 1, London compromised. Clara gasped. They've got Parliament, blackmail files, everyone. Blanc downloaded the data to a flash drive, but footsteps cut through the hum. He shoved Clara and Julian behind a server rack as Lena entered, flanked by the grey-haired man. Blanc's here, she said, voice cold. He wants him gone. The man, Ravenwood, or his ghost, nodded. The vial's ready. One drop, and London's theirs. Blanc's mind raced. The vial from New York, a bioweapon, here, now. He signalled Clara to record, her hands steady. Julian, trembling, knocked a cable loose. The screens flickered, and Lena spun, gun drawn. Show yourself, Blanc. He stepped out, hands raised, drawl smooth. Evening, Lena. Fancy meeting you out of cuffs. She smirked, but Ravenwood's double raised a hand. You're a pest, Blanc, but pests get swatted. Clara, hidden, hit send on her recorder, streaming to Patel. Blanc kept talking, buying time. Swat all you like, sir. I've got your protocols, your vial, your summit, and I reckon Mr. E's closer than you think. Ravenwood's double laughed, but his eyes flickered. E's an idea. You can't kill it. The door burst open, Patel, with armed police. Lena fired, grazing Blanc's leg. He dove, tackling Ravenwood's double as Clara dragged Julian out. The lounge erupted, cops cuffing Lena, but the double slipped free, vanishing into a hidden panel. Blanc, bleeding, grabbed the vial from a table, its label chilling, VX7, lethal aerosol. Patel's team secured the club, but the summit's elite had scattered. The flash drive held names, dates, plans, London's power structure, bought or broken. Clara's recording was gold, but Ravenwood's double was gone, and the real E still a shadow. Back at the flat, Patel confirmed the vial was a nerve agent, enough to cripple a city. Interpol had the data, but leaks were likely. Clara clutched. The photo. Her father's face a lie. He's not human anymore. He's them. Blanc, bandaged, lit a cigar. He's a man, Clara. Men bleed, and I'll find him. His phone buzzed. London was a warning, Blanc. Home's next. A crescent moon emoji, again. Home. Kentucky? Or worse, Clara and Julian's home, wherever that was now. The maps. Final marker loomed. Hong Kong. The syndicate's endgame was global, and Blanc was running out of board. As Big Ben told, Blanc stared into the fog. The vial was safe, Lena was cuffed, but E was laughing. He'd solve this case, fast, like always, but the gambit was tightening and the edge was razor-thin. Chapter 7. The Hong Kong Reckoning. The Soho flat was a fortress of shadows, its windows rattling as London's dawn crept through the fog. Benoit Blanc stood by a map pinned to the wall, the boathouse map's final marker, Hong Kong circled, in red like a wound. His leg, grazed in the silver crescent shootout, throbbed under a fresh bandage, but pain was just a nudge to move faster. Clara Ravenwood clutched the photo of her father, his surgically altered face a lie that cut deeper than the syndicate's bullets. Julian, pale and useless, stared at the vial of VX7 nerve agent, now locked in a police safe, its threat too real. The latest text on Blanc's phone. London was a warning, Blanc. Home's next. Hung heavy, its crescent moon emoji a signature of Mr. E, the syndicate's phantom. The protocol's data, now with Interpol, painted a doomsday. Project Mirror aimed to paralyze global power, and Hong Kong was the endgame. Blanc lit a cigar, smoke curling like a noose. Clara, your father's trail ends in Hong Kong. The Silver Crescent was a dress rehearsal. What's he love there? A street, a view. Clara's voice was raw but firm. He owned a penthouse in Kowloon, said it overlooked the heart of the world. Never took us. Blanc nodded, eyes on Julian. You, son? Any Hong Kong whispers from Daddy? Julian's hands shook. He called it the final board, said everything converged there. Converged, Blanc muttered, tapping the map. The protocols named a syndicate summit in Hong Kong tomorrow at the Eclipse Tower, a skyscraper tied to Ravenwood's shell companies. Lena's words in London, ease an idea, echoed, but Blanc sensed flesh behind the ghost. The sheriff, back in New York, was feeding Interpol leads, but Blanc trusted only his own moves. We're flying east. Time to end this. The flight to Hong Kong was a red-eye marathon. The plane's hum a pulse matching Blanc's thoughts. Clara studied the protocol's files, her recorder now a lifeline. Julian slept, haunted. Blanc traced the photo's edges. Ravenwood's eyes too young. A double, a clone, or surgery. The text's mention of home gnawed. Kentucky, or the Ravenwood's fractured family. Hong Kong would tell. The city blazed with neon, its skyline a forest of glass and greed. Blanc led Clara and Julian to a safe house in Mongkok, a cramped flat above a noodle shop, courtesy of a triad-turned informant, Wei Chen. Chen, lean with a crescent scar on his cheek, met them at midnight, his intel sharp. Eclipse Tower's a fortress, he said, spreading blueprints. Syndicate owns the top floors. Security's military grade. Cameras, biometrics, mercs. Summits at 11 p.m. tomorrow. Blanc's smile was sly. Fortress is full, Mr. Chen. Get us in. Chen forged IDs. Blanc as a Shanghai investor. Clara, as his translator, Julian, as a tech consultant. The sheriff, grounded by Interpol red tape, sent encrypted updates. Lena had vanished from custody. A mole suspected. Blanc prepped in the flat, his drawl a blade. This ain't London's old money. Hong Kong's raw, fast. Watch for crescent moons, rings, screens, scars. Clara, keep that recorder hot. The Eclipse Tower pierced the clouds, its black glass, reflecting Kowloon's chaos. The summit was a gala, all silk and secrets. Blanc, in a tailored suit, moved like he belonged. Clara's red dress hiding her mic, Julian's glasses hiding panic. The penthouse throbbed with power. Triad bosses, tech titans, a Gulf prince with a crescent ring. Blanc's eyes caught a figure by the bar. Ravenwood's double, older now. His face a mask of scars and surgery, sipping gin. Clara whispered, "Father, or not?" Blanc's pulse spiked. Stay close. He's bait. A man took the stage, Chen's rival, a syndicate lord named Jiang Wei. Tonight, Jiang boomed, Project Mirror ascends. The world bends, or breaks. His watch bore a crescent moon. Blanc nudged Clara toward a service door, its keypad glowing. Julian trailed, muttering about escape. Blanc cracked the code, Mirror 7, and they entered a control room, screens showing, global feeds, stock markets, defense grids, all tagged Mirror compromised. Clara's recorder whirred. "They're hacking everything," she hissed. Blanc downloaded data to a flash drive, but a shadow moved. Ravenwood's double entered alone, a gun in hand. "You're late, Blanc," he said, voice a warped echo of the man in Boston. "He's done with games." Blanc stepped forward, hands raised. "Then let's deal, sir. You're Ravenwood, or his shadow. Who's he?" The man laughed, scars twitching. "He's me, he's her, he's the air you breathe." Clara, hidden, streamed her recording to Chen. Julian, useless, tripped, alerting guards. The room lit up, mercs storming in. Blanc dove, shoving Ravenwood's double into a server, sparks flying. Clara fired a stolen taser, dropping a guard. Julian cowered, but Blanc hauled him up, the flash drive secure. "Move!" The penthouse was a war zone. Guests screaming as Chen's team, triad defectors, breached the tower. Jiang Wei fled, but Ravenwood's double fought like a demon, his gun clipping Blanc's shoulder. Blood soaked his suit, but Blanc tackled, him cuffing him to a pipe with a zip tie. "Talk!" Blanc growled. "Where's the real Ravenwood?" The double spat blood. "Dead! I'm his face, his voice, he's the mind." A screen flickered. Mirror activated. Hong Kong grid down. Lights across Kowloon died, plunging the city into chaos. Clara's recording hit Interpol, but the mercs were closing. Blanc grabbed a second vial, VX7, same as London, from a console, its timer ticking, 10 minutes to aerosol release. "Clara! Julian! Roof!" Blanc shouted, dragging the double. Chen's chopper waited, blades slicing the night. They climbed, bullets pinging, but the double broke free, leaping for a fire escape. Blanc fired a stolen gun, missing. The chopper lifted. Kowloon a dark maze below. Chen's radio crackled. Interpol had the data, but the grid hack was spreading. Tokyo, Singapore, New York. Clara clutched the vial, its timer at 3 minutes. Blanc, bleeding, disarmed it with a hairpin, his hands steady. "Old trick," he panted, tossing it to Chen. "Get that to a lab." Julian sobbed. "It's over, isn't it?" Blanc's eyes were steel. "Not till E's down." His phone buzzed. "Home's burning, Blanc. Come see." A crescent moon emoji and a photo. His Kentucky cabin, flames licking its porch. Clara gasped, but Blanc's cigar flared. Hong Kong was a reckoning, but E was personal now. The real Ravenwood was dead, his double a puppet, and E was no idea. It was Lena, or Jiang, or someone closer, pulling every string. As the chopper banked over Victoria Harbour, Blanc stared into the dark. The syndicate was bleeding, but E was laughing. He'd solve this case, fast, like always. But the reckoning was home, and the fire was close. Chapter 8. The Ashes of Home. The chopper's blades sliced through Hong Kong's neon night. The city's blackout, a dark mirror to Benoit Blanc's thoughts. Blood seeped from his shoulder, the Merkys bullet a fresh scar. But the real wound was the phone in his hand, a photo of his Kentucky cabin, flames licking its porch, captioned, "Home's burning Blanc. Come see." The crescent moon emoji mocked him, Mr. E's signature now personal. Clara Ravenwood clutched the deactivated VX7 vial, her face pale from the Eclipse Tower's chaos. Julian, useless as ever, stared out the chopper's window, the boathouse map crumpled in his lap. Hong Kong's marker now a memory, Kentucky uncircled but calling. The Crescent Protocol's data, streamed to Interpol, had crippled Project. Mirror's hack, but the Syndicate was a hydra, and E was its heart. Blanc lit a cigar, the ember steady despite the chopper's sway. "Clara," he drawled, voice low, "your father's double called E an idea. But that photo's real. Someone knows my home. Any Kentucky ties in your family?" Clara's eyes flickered, searching. "Father. He visited Louisville once, years ago. Met a man, called him the Fixer. Never said more." Blanc turned to Julian, his gaze sharp. "You, son, any fixer in Daddy's stories?" Julian's hands trembled. He mentioned a lodge near the Cumberland Gap. Said it was where debts were settled. Blanc's pulse quickened. The Cumberland Gap, a stone's throw from his cabin. The protocols had named no Kentucky hubs, but E's taunt screamed intent. Wei Chen, the triad informant, piloted the chopper to a private airstrip, his radio crackling with Interpol's updates. Lena was still missing. Jiang Wei's body found in Kowloon, another syndicate cleanup. The sheriff, stuck in New York, texted, "Feds have the vial's specs, nerve agent, military grade. Watch your back." "We're heading home," Blanc said, smoke curling. "Kentucky's no coincidence. He's calling me out." The flight to Louisville was a grueling red-eye, the plane's hum a dirge for Blanca's cabin. Clara pored over the protocol's files, her recorder now a chronicle of their war. Julian slept, haunted by his father's scarred double. Blanc studied the photo. Its flames too precise. Arson, not accident. His cabin was no secret, but only a few knew its heart. A safe, hidden in the floor, holding case files from his past. Was E after them? Or something older? Kentucky greeted them with rolling hills and a humid dawn. Blanc rented a pickup, leading Clara and Julian to the Cumberland Gap, where his cabin's ashes waited. The sheriff met them at a diner, his NYPD grit out of place among flannel and biscuits. "Feds are circling," he said, sliding a file. "Found a syndicate shell company in Louisville. Crescent Holdings. Owns a lodge nearby." Blanc's eyes gleamed. Debt settled indeed. Let's pay a visit. The lodge, Moon's Rest, was a sprawling estate, its log facade hiding steel gates. Blanc's cabin, a mile away, was a charred skeleton, its safe untouched but exposed. He retrieved a file, his first case, a syndicate bust in New Orleans, 1995. A name jumped out. Elias. Morrow, a fixer, presumed dead. Crescent moon tattoo. Blanc's blood ran cold. Morrow. They approached the lodge at dusk, Blanc posing as a surveyor, Clara and Julian as assistants. The sheriff scouted the perimeter, radio ready. The guard, a burly man with a crescent ring, waved them through after a bribe. Inside, the lodge was a hunter's dream. Taxidermy, bourbon, power. A gala was underway, men and women in suits, their pins and watches flashing crescents. Blanc's nose twitched. This was no retreat. This was E's throne. Clara whispered, "That man, by the fireplace, he's got father's walk." Blanc followed her gaze. A figure, grey-haired, scarred, moved with Ravenwood's gait but Morrow's eyes. The double, or worse, Morrow himself alive, reborn as E. Before they could move, a woman stepped into view. Lena, her dark hair loose, a crescent pendant at her throat. She scanned the room, locking eyes with Blanc. "Time to dance," Blanc muttered, nudging Clara toward a side hall. Julian trailed, clutching the map like a shield. The hall led to a locked door, its keypad glowing. Blanc cracked it, Elia 7, and they entered a war room. Maps, screens, a safe. One screen showed Project Mirror, Phase 2, Kentucky Nexus. Another listed targets, Blanc's name, top. Clara's recorder hummed. They're planning a strike, DC, tomorrow. Blanc pried the safe, finding a ledger. Crescent Holdings, 1995-2025. Payments tomorrow, Ravenwood, Lena. A photo fell out. Blanc, younger, in New Orleans, shaking hands with a man. Morrow, his first case, a betrayal buried. E wasn't just syndicate. E was personal. Footsteps. Blanc shoved the ledger into his jacket as Lena entered, gun raised. "You're late, Benoit," she purred. "He's been waiting." Blanc stepped forward, hands up. "Lena, darling, let's skip the theatrics. Elias Morrow's your boss, ain't he? Hiding behind Ravenwood's face." Her smile faltered. "You're half right. Morrow's dead. He's evolved." Clara, hidden, streamed her recording to the sheriff. Julian, panicking, knocked over a chair. Lena fired, the bullet grazing Blanc's arm. He dove, tackling her, but Morrow's double burst in, a syringe in hand, VX7, undiluted. "Endgame, Blanc," he growled. The sheriff's team breached, guns blazing. Clara tasered a guard. Julian cowered. Blanc wrestled the syringe, jamming it into the double's leg. He collapsed, foaming, dead in seconds. Lena screamed, but the sheriff cuffed her. The lodge's gala dissolved, elites fleeing as feds swarmed, tipped by Clara's stream. Blanc, bleeding, poured over the ledger. Morrow was E, but Lena's words, evolved, rang. The screen flickered. Mirror Phase 2, DC activated. A countdown, 12 hours. Clara clutched the photo, Morrow's eyes now hers. "He knew you?" she said. "Why?" Blanc's cigar trembled. "New Orleans. I trusted him. He burned me." His phone buzzed. "Ashes for ashes, Blanc. DC's mine." A crescent, moon emoji, and a live feed, Capitol Hill, gas rising. The feds had the lodge, Lena, the ledger. But E was ahead, a ghost in Blanc's past. DC was the final board, and the clock was ticking. As the Kentucky stars burned, Blanc stared at the map. E was no idea. E was vengeance, and home was gone. He'd solve this case, fast, like always, but the ashes were hot, and the reckoning was now. Chapter 9. The Capital Checkmate. The Kentucky night was thick with the scent of ash and betrayal. The Moon's Rest Lodge, now a federal crime scene, swarming with floodlights and sirens. Benoit Blanc stood by the pickup, his arm freshly bandaged, blood seeping through from Lena's shot. His cigar glowed, a faint beacon against the chaos, but his eyes were locked on his phone. a live feed of Capitol Hill, gas curling through its marble halls, captioned, "Ashes for ashes, Blanc DCs." Mine. The crescent moon emoji was Mr. E's final taunt, a signature that had haunted him from Maine to Hong Kong. Clara Ravenwood gripped the ledger from the lodge, its pages tying Elias Morrow, Blanc's old New Orleans betrayer, to the crescent, Syndicate's heart. Julian, shaken but clinging to purpose, held the boathouse map, its markers, Maine, Boston, New York, London, Hong Kong, crossed out, DC unwritten but screaming. The sheriff, coordinating with the FBI, shouted orders, but Blanc's mind was already in Washington. He flicked the cigar, his drawl cutting the din. Clara, that ledger, any DC names, politicians, fixers. Clara flipped pages, her voice steady despite the strain. 3 senators, a Pentagon official, payments from Crescent Holdings, coded as Mirror Phase 2, and a meeting tonight at the Willard Hotel. Blanc turned to Julian, eyes like flint. Your father's double-mentioned DC in Kentucky. Any specifics? Julian's hands shook, but he nodded. He said, "The capital's where kings fall." Thought it was a metaphor. Ain't no metaphor when gas is flowing, Blanc said, pocketing his phone. The protocol's files, now with the FBI, detailed Project Mirror's endgame. Blackmail to control, nerve agents to enforce. The live feed's gas was VX7, same as Hong Kong's vial, and the countdown, 12 hours, was now 8. The sheriff handed Blanc a burner phone with a direct line to Agent Harper, FBI counterterrorism. Harper's got DC locked down, the sheriff said, but they're blind on E. Then we're their eyes, Blanc replied. Book us to DC, now. The flight was a tense sprint, the plane's roar no match for Blanc's racing thoughts. Clara streamed her lodge recording to Harper, its ledger scans gold for the feds. Julian clutched the map, muttering about his father's ghost. Blanc studied the New Orleans file from his cabin safe. Morrow's betrayal, a wound reopened. 1995, a syndicate bust gone wrong. Morrow vanishing, Blanc blamed. Was E. Morrow reborn, or a disciple? The feed's gas curling through Capitol. Corridors was no bluff. E was playing for keeps. DC greeted them with a humid dawn, its monuments stark against a sky heavy with threat. Blanc led Clara and Julian to a motel near the mall, a base Harper secured. The agent met them, a wiry woman with eyes like steel. Capitol's on lockdown, Harper said, spreading blueprints. Gas traces found in the ventilation, VX7, small dose, a warning. Source is underground, old Civil War tunnels. Summit at the Willards our lead. Syndicates meeting senators tonight. Blanc's smile was grim. Then we're gate crashers. Get us in. Harper forged IDs. Blanc as a Southern lobbyist, Clara as his aide, Julian as a staffer. The sheriff stayed with Harper, running comms. Blanc prepped in the motel, his voice a blade. DC's a chessboard, not Hong Kong's chaos. Watch for crescent moons, pins, pens, glances. Clara, your recorder's the queen. The Willard Hotel was a palace of power, its lobby thick with suits and secrets. The summit, a closed-door policy dinner, hummed with syndicate stench. Blanc, in a crisp suit, moved like he owned the room. Clara's blazer hiding her mic, Julian's tie hiding panic. Senators mingled, their aides flashing crescent pins. Blanc's eyes caught a woman by the bar. Lena, free again, her pendant glinting. Beside her, a man, not Ravenwood's double, but familiar, his eyes Morrow's. "Clara," whispered, "that's from the New Orleans photo. Your case." Blanc's blood ran cold. Morrow, alive or a perfect fake? "Stay sharp," he hissed, nudging them toward a service hall. The hall led to a locked door, crescent moon keypad. Blanc cracked it, Morrow 95, and they entered a private suite. A mirror, like London's, framed in crescents, hid a safe. Blanc pried it open. Blueprints of capital tunnels, a VX7 canister, and a drive-labelled mirror. Final phase. Julian gasped. "They're gassing the capital. Tonight." Blanc downloaded the drive, but footsteps echoed. Lena and Morrow's look-alike entered, guns drawn. "Benoit," Lena purred, "you're predictable." Blanc stepped forward, hands raised. "And you're recycling old tricks, Lena. Elias Morrow, I presume. Or his ghost." The man smiled, scars faint but real. "Morrow's dead. I'm Elias Kane, his son. He's my birthright." Clara's recorder streamed to Harper, her hands steady. Julian, useless, knocked a vase, shattering it. Lena fired, clipping Blanc's ear. He dove, shoving Kane into the mirror, glass raining. Clara tasered Lena, who screamed, dropping her gun. Julian cowered, but Blanc hauled him up, the drive secure. "Out!" The suite erupted, Harper's team breaching. Lena fought, but Clara tackled her, zip-tying her wrists. Kane slipped through a hidden panel, the canister gone. Blanc, bleeding, chased, the Willards' Hall's a maze. He caught Kane in the basement near a tunnel entrance, the canister rigged to a timer. 2 minutes. "Endgame, Elias," Blanc growled, tackling him. The timer ticked. 30 seconds. Blanc ripped wires, a New Orleans trick, stopping it at 3. Kane laughed, bloodied. "He's bigger than me. Mirror's alive?" Harper's team cuffed Kane, but the drive's data was dire. Mirror Phase 2 was active, VX7 in multiple tunnels, triggered remotely. Clara's recording hit the feds. Outing. Senators, but Capitol Hill was evacuating. Gas traces spreading. Blanc pored over the blueprints, finding a central hub. Union Station underground. They raced to the station, Harper's team clearing paths. The hub was a steel vault, crescent moon lock. Blanc cracked it, heart pounding. Inside, canisters, disarmed but a screen showed mirror, global reset. Names, cities, leaders, syndicate cells waking worldwide. A figure emerged. Lena escaped, holding a detonator. "Ease me, Benoit," she spat. "Morrow's heir, Ravenwood's dream." Blanc dove as she pressed it, but nothing happened. Clara had cut the wire, her taser spent. Harper cuffed Lena, but the screen flickered. Reset active. Unknown source. Blanc's phone buzzed. "Checkmate, Blanc. Look up." A crescent moon emoji, and a drone overhead, gas trailing. Clara screamed. Julian froze. Blanc, bloodied, lit a cigar, staring at the sky. Lena was E's face, Kane its fist, but the mind was elsewhere. New Orleans, 1995, a shadow uncaught. The feds had the canisters, the drive, but Mirror was alive, and DC was just the board. He'd solve this case, fast like always. But the checkmate was global, and the king was still in play. Chapter 10. The New Orleans Requiem. The air over Union Station was thick with the drone's fading hiss. its VX7 gas trail dissipating as DC's sirens wailed into the dawn. Benoit Blanc stood on the platform, blood crusting his ear from Lena's shot, his suit torn but his eyes burning. The crescent moon emoji on his phone, "Checkmate, Blanc, look up," was Mr. E's final jab, but Lena's words in the vault, "E's me, Morrow's heir, Ravenwood's dream," pointed to a deeper truth. Elias Kane was cuffed, the syndicate's senators exposed, but Project Mirror's global reset was active, its source unknown. Clara Ravenwood clutched her recorder, its feed to the FBI a lifeline that had saved Capitol Hill. Julian, trembling, held the boathouse map, its markers spent, but Blanc's mind traced back to 1995. New Orleans, his first case, where Elias Morrow betrayed him. The Crescent Syndicate wasn't born in Maine. It was forged in the bayou. Blanc lit a cigar, smoke curling like a ghost. "Clara," he drawled, voice steady, "your father's dream, Lena's heir, is not one soul. New Orleans, 1995. That's where this started. Any family ties there?" Clara's hands shook, flipping the lodge ledger. "Father, he owned a warehouse in the French Quarter, said it was where it all began." Never explained, Blanc's gaze shifted to Julian, sharp as a blade. "You, son? New Orleans whispers?" Julian's voice cracked. He loved the jazz clubs, said the Crescent Note was his sanctuary." Blanc's pulse spiked. The Crescent Note, a dive bar, a syndicate haunt in 95. The New Orleans file from his cabin's safe named it, tied to Morrow's betrayal. Agent Harper, the FBI's pit bull, approached, her radio crackling. "DC's secure," she said, "but Mirror's cells are waking. Berlin, Dubai, Sydney. We traced a signal to New Orleans, French Quarter. You know it." "Like my own. Skin," Blanc said, flicking ash. "Book us a flight. He's calling me home." The plane to Louis Armstrong Airport was a tense vault, its hum no match for Blanc's thoughts. Clara uploaded her recordings to Harper's secure server, each clip a nail in the syndicate's coffin. Julian clutched the map, muttering about his father's scarred double. Blanc pored over the 95 file. Morrow, a fixer, had framed him for a botched bust, vanishing with syndicate cash. The Crescent Note was their meat, where trust died. Was E. Morrow's shadow, or his maker? New Orleans wrapped them in heat and jazz, its French Quarter alive with bourbon and secrets. Blanc led Clara and Julian to a safe house above a voodoo shop, courtesy of Marie Laveau, a hacker who owed him from 95. Marie, Dread's framing sharp eyes, handed Blanc a dossier. "Crescent Note's still hot," she said. "Syndicate runs it now. Warehouse next door's their nerve centre. Summit tonight, 11 p.m. Signals coming from there." Blanc's smile was grim. "Then we're singing their requiem. Clue, us in." Marie forged IDs, Blanc as a Creole rum runner, Clara as his bookkeeper, Julian as a driver. Harper's FBI team trailed, but Blanc waved off a raid. "He smells feds," he said. "We go soft, strike hard." The sheriff, grounded in D.C., sent encrypted specs. The VX7 signal was a remote trigger, tied to a French Quarter hub. Blanc prepped in the safe house, his drawl a razor. "This ain't DC's polish. New Orleans is blood and rhythm. Watch for crescent moons, signs, scars, songs. Clara, your recorder's our dirge." The Crescent Note was a smoky den, its jazz roar and walls scarred with crescent carvings. The summit, a private party, pulsed with syndicate brass. Cartel lords, tech moguls, a senator with a crescent tie-pin. Blanc, in a linen suit, moved like a local. Clara's scarf hiding her mic, Julian's cap hiding fear. A singer, her voice velvet wore a crescent pendant. Blanc's eyes caught a man in the shadows. Elias Kane's build, but older. His face a map of scars. Morrow, or his final mask. Clara whispered, "That's not father's double. It's him." Blanc's blood ran cold. Morrow, alive, he's core. "Stay close," he hissed, nudging them toward a back door. Crescent moonlock. Julian trembled, but Clara's hand was steady. Blanc cracked the lock, Bayou 95, and they entered the warehouse. A control room, screens showing mirror. Global reset, active. Maps pinned cities. Canisters marked VX7. A safe held a drive. E's testament. Julian gasped. They're hitting every capital. Tomorrow. Blanc downloaded the drive, but a jazz note faltered. The singer, Morrow's ally, entered gun, raised. "Benoit," she purred, pendant glinting. "He knew you'd come." Blanc stepped forward, hands up. "Fine voice, darling. But he's songs off key. Elias Morrow, I reckon. Hiding in plain sight." She laughed, scars faint under makeup. "Morrow's dust. I'm Elise, his sister. He's ours, mine, Lena's, Kane's. You burned us in 95. Now you pay." Clara's recorder streamed to Marie, her hands steady. Julian, panicking, kicked a crate, alerting guards. Elise fired, grazing Blanc's ribs. He dove, shoving her into a screen, sparks flying. Clara tasered a guard. Julian cowered. Blanc grabbed the drive, but Elise triggered an alarm. The warehouse lit up, mercs swarming. Harper's team breached, guns blazing. Clara tackled Elise, zip-tying her wrists. Blanc, bleeding, chased a figure, Morrow's shadow, into the quarter's alleys. He caught him in a courtyard, under a crescent moon mural. The man turned. Morrow, aged but alive, his eyes Blanc's old friend. "He's me, Benoit," he rasped. "You broke us. I rebuilt." Blanc's gun trembled. "You framed me. Killed. Thousands. For what? Order," Morrow spat. "Mirrors the world's spine." A shot rang out, not Blanc's. Morrow fell, blood pooling, Lena behind him, her gun smoking. "He was weak," she said, vanishing into the dark. Blanc knelt. Morrow's last breath, a crescent pendant, dropped. The feds secured the warehouse, the drive outing Mirror's cells. Clara's recording shut down the reset. Cities spared. Elise and Kane were cuffed, but Lena was gone. E's final face. Blanc's phone buzzed. "Requiem sung, Blanc, encore." A crescent moon emoji and a photo. A New Orleans crypt. Blanc's name carved. Clara clutched the map. Julian sobbed. Blanc lit a cigar, staring at the mural. Morrow was dead, mirror broken, but Lena was E's heir, and New Orleans was no end. He'd solved the case, fast, like always, but the crypt was calling, and the music wasn't done. Chapter 11. The Crypt's Whisper. The French Quarter's dawn was heavy with the scent of blood and bourbon, the Crescent Note's neon sign flickering out as FBI floodlights bathed the street. Benoit Blanc stood under the crescent moon mural, his ribs stinging from Elise's graze. his suit stained with the sweat of a case that refused to die. Elias Morrow's body lay under a tarp. His final words, "I rebuilt," echoing in Blanc's mind. Lena, the new Mr. E, had vanished after shooting Morrow, her taunt burning on Blanc's phone. "Requiem sung, Blanc. Encore." The photo of a New Orleans crypt, his name carved in stone, was no idle threat. It was a summons. Clara Ravenwood clutched her recorder, its feed to the FBI dismantling Project Mirror's global cells. Julian, broken by his family's lies, held the boathouse map, its markers spent, but its weight eternal. The syndicate was bleeding, but Lena was its pulse. Blanc lit a cigar, smoke curling like a question. "Clara," he said, his drawl steady, "that crypt, your family ever tie to New Orleans graves? Old plots, old debts?" Clara's eyes searched, the ledger from Kentucky, her voice raw. "Father, he mentioned a family vault, not here, Savannah. Said it held our legacy. I thought he meant money." Blanc's gaze snapped to Julian, sharp as a bayou knife. "You, son," Savannah whispers. Julian's hands trembled, but he nodded. He took me there once. A crypt near Bonaventure. Cemetery. Said it was where we rise." Blanc's heart raced. Bonaventure, Georgia's haunted heart, a stone's throw from Savannah's ports, perfect for syndicate games. The 95 New Orleans file mentioned a Savannah contact, a smuggler tied to Morrow's network. Agent Harper approached, her face grim. "Mirror's down, but we've got chatter. Syndicates regrouping in Savannah. Signals from a warehouse, portside. Crypt's a lead, but it's hot." Blanc flicked ash, his smile grim. "Then we're heading to Georgia. Lena's calling me to her stage." The flight to Savannah was a tense blur, the plane's hum a counterpoint to Blanc's thoughts. Clara uploaded her recordings to Harper's server, each clip a blow to the syndicate's spine. Julian clutched the map, muttering about his father's crypt. Blanc studied the crypt photo, its carving too fresh. Lena's work, baiting him. The New Orleans file named a Savannah fixer, Amelia Vane. Crescent tattoo, Morrow's ally in 95. Was Lena her heir, or something closer? Savannah greeted them with moss-draped oaks and a humid dusk, its riverfront alive with trade and shadows. Blanc led Clara and Julian to a safe house in the historic district, a townhouse courtesy of Rosa Tate, a retired GBI agent who'd crossed the syndicate in 98. Rosa, silver-haired with a limp, handed Blanc a dossier. "Port Warehouse is Syndicate Central," she said, spreading maps. "Crypts in Bonaventure, Ravenwood plot. Summits tonight, warehouse, 10 p.m. Lena's there." Blanc's eyes gleamed. "Then we're crashing her encore. Get us in." Rosa forged IDs, Blanc as a Charleston importer, Clara as his clerk, Julian as a dock worker. Harper's FBI team trailed, but Blanc kept them at arm's length. "Lena smells law," he said. "We slip in, cut deep." The sheriff, still in D.C., texted, "Feds found Vane's file. Syndicate smuggler, linked to Ravenwood, vanished 95. Blanc prepped in the safe house, his drawl a blade. "Savannah's old ghosts, new games. Watch for crescent moons, rings, crates, eyes. Clara, your recorders are him." The warehouse loomed by the Savannah River, its rusted hull hiding steel doors. The summit, A trade meeting buzzed with syndicate remnants. Smugglers, hackers, a mayor with a crescent. Watch. Blanc, in a linen jacket, moved like a local. Clara's scarf hiding her mic. Julian's cap hiding panic. A crate marked with a crescent moon caught Blanc's eye, VX7 or worse. A woman by the docks drew his gaze. Lena, her pendant glinting, directing a crew. Clara whispered, "She's different, older." Blanc's blood chilled. Lena or Amelia Vane? "Stay close," he hissed, nudging them toward a side door. "Crescent lock." Clara's hand was steady. Julian's not. Blanc cracked the lock, Vane 95, and they entered a control room. Screens showed mirror, Phoenix Protocol, a new plan, port sabotage, global trade choked, a safe held a drive, E's legacy. Julian gasped, "They're crashing markets. Tomorrow." Blanc downloaded the drive, but a crate creaked. Lena, or Vane, entered, gun raised. "Benoit," she purred, pendant swinging. "You're late for the grave." Blanc stepped forward, hands up. "Fine play, Lena. Or is it Amelia Vane? Morrow's partner, Ravenwood's shadow." Her smile was ice. "Vane's gone. I'm E, born from their ashes. You broke us in 95. Now the world breaks." Clara's recorder streamed to Rosa, her hands steady. Julian, panicking, tipped a crate, alerting guards. Lena fired, clipping Blanc's thigh. He dove, shoving her into a screen, sparks flying. Clara tasered a guard. Julian cowered. Blanc grabbed the drive, but Lena triggered a timer. VX7 canisters, port wide, 5 minutes. Rosa's GBI team breached, guns blazing. Clara tackled Lena, zip-tying her wrists. Blanc, bleeding, chased a figure, Vane's shadow, toward Bonaventure. He caught her at the Ravenwood crypt, its door ajar, crescent moon carved. Inside a vault. Files, gold, a photo. Blanc, Morrow, Vane, 95 laughing. Lena was Vane's daughter, E's true heir. "Lena!" Blanc shouted, gun raised. She turned, detonator in hand. "You can't stop Phoenix," she spat. "Savannah's just the spark." Clara's recording hit the feds. Port lockdown in motion. Blanc dove as Lena pressed the detonator, but Rosa's sniper shot it from her hand. Lena screamed, cuffed by Harper's team, but the screens flickered. Phoenix active. Unknown source. Blanc's phone buzzed. "Crypt's yours, Blanc. Who's next?" A crescent moon emoji and a video. Clara, bound in an unknown room. Julian sobbed. Harper cursed. Blanc, bloodied, lit a cigar, staring at the crypt's moon. Lena was E, Vane's legacy, but Phoenix was alive, and Clara, what's the cost? He'd solve the case, fast like always, but the whisper was new, and the game wasn't done. Chapter 12. The Shadow's Endgame. The Bonaventure Cemetery was a labyrinth of moss and stone, its Ravenwood crypt glowing under FBI floodlights as Savannah's dawn broke. Benoit Blanc stood by the crypt's crescent moon carving. His thigh, bleeding from Lena's shot, his cigar unlit but clenched like a vow. The video on his phone, Clara, bound in an unknown room, her eyes defiant, burned hotter than the wound. Lena, unmasked as Amelia Vane's daughter and the syndicate's Mr. E, was cuffed. Her detonator shot away. But her taunt, "Crypt's yours, Blanc. Who's next?" And the Phoenix Protocol's activation screamed unfinished business. Julian, Ravenwood, shattered by his sister's kidnapping, clutched the boathouse map, its markers exhausted but its weight crushing. The crypt's files, now with Agent Harper, named a new hub. Miami, a syndicate port for Phoenix, a plan to crash global markets. The Crescent Syndicate was cornered, but Clara was the cost. Blanc lit the cigar, smoke curling like a storm. "Julian," he drawled, voice steady, "that crypt vault, any Miami ties? Your father's legacy?" Julian's hands shook, flipping the ledger from Savannah. "Father, he shipped through Miami. Said the Eclipse Key was his final port. A yacht, maybe?" Blanc's eyes narrowed, pinning Rosa Tate, the GBI agent, as she approached. "Rosa, Eclipse Key, ring any bells?" Rosa nodded, her limp pronounced. "Syndicate yacht, docked in Miami's Biscayne Bay. Warehouse nearby, syndicate owned. Summits tonight, 11 p.m. Signals hot. Phoenix is there." Blanc's pulse surged. Miami, Neon, Vice, the syndicate's last stand. The 95 New Orleans file mentioned a Miami smuggler, Victor Salazar, dead in a jet crash. But his network lived. "Harper," Blanc said, "we're heading south. Clara's alive, and I'm fetching her." The flight to Miami was a pressure cooker, the plane's hum drowned by Blanc's thoughts. Julian clutched the map, muttering about Clara. Blanc studied the crypt's photo. Blanc, Morrow, Vane, 95. Its edges worn. Lena was E. But Phoenix's unknown source hinted at a deeper player. Harper's burner phone buzzed. Feds traced Phoenix signal to Miami port. Warehouse is fortified. Eclipse Keys a floating fortress. Blanc prepped in the air. His drawl, "Hey, Blade, Miami's a snake pit. Watch for crescent moons, crates, tattoos, waves. Julian, you're my shadow." Miami blazed with heat and neon, its Biscayne Bay glittering with wealth and sin. Blanc led Julian to a safe house in Wynwood, a loft above a muraled bar, courtesy of Javier Cruz, a Coast Guard defector who'd crossed the syndicate in '02. Cruz, scarred and wiry, spread blueprints. "Eclipse Key's a mega yacht," he said. "Armed guards, biometrics, warehouse next door's Phoenix Central. Summit's hot, Lena's lieutenants are there." Blanc's smile was grim. "Then, we're boarding, get us in." Cruz forged IDs, Blanc as a Cuban shipping magnate, Julian as his aide. Harper's FBI team trailed, but Blanc kept them distant. "Syndicate smells law," he said. "We slip, we strike." The sheriff, stuck in D.C., texted, "Feds ID'd Phoenix. Market crash via cyber attack. Triggered from Miami." Blanc prepped, in the loft, his voice steel. "This ain't Savannah's ghosts. Miami's raw, fast. Julian, stay close." The Eclipse Key loomed in Biscayne Bay, its decks a gala of syndicate elite. Cartel bosses, hedge fund sharks, a diplomat with a crescent ring. Blanc, in a silk shirt, moved like a kingpin, Julian's suit hiding panic. The warehouse, a shadowed giant, hummed with activity. Blanc's eyes caught a figure on the yacht's bridge. Clara, unbound, talking to a man. Not Lena, but familiar, his crescent watch glinting. Julian gasped. "Clara? She's free?" Blanc's blood chilled. A trap or a turn. "Stay sharp," he hissed, nudging Julian toward the warehouse, its door marked with a crescent moon. Blanc cracked the lock, Phoenix 7, and they entered a control room. Screens showed Phoenix. Market collapse. Active, targeting Wall Street, London, Tokyo. A safe held a drive. E's endgame. Julian whispered, "They're tanking everything." Tonight, Blanc downloaded the drive, but a shadow moved. The man from the yacht entered, gun raised. "Benoit," he said, voice smooth. "You're late." Blanc stepped forward, hands up. "Fine yacht, sir. Victor Salazar, I presume. Not so dead." The man laughed, watch glinting. "Salazar's a name like E. I'm Adrian Vane, Amelia's brother, Lena's uncle. Phoenix is mine." Julian's eyes widened. Your family?" Clara burst in, free but fierce, recorder in hand. "He's a liar, Benoit. He used me, said father planned Phoenix." Blanc's mind raced. Adrian Vane, 95 New Orleans, the shadow behind Morrow. Clara's recorder streamed to cruise, her hands steady. Julian, panicking, tipped a crate, alerting guards. Adrian fired, grazing Blanc's arm. He dove, shoving Adrian into a screen, sparks flying. Clara tasered a guard. Julian tackled another, finding courage. Blanc grabbed the drive, but Adrian triggered a timer. VX7 canisters bay wide, 3 minutes. Cruises. Coast Guard team breached, guns blazing. Clara tackled Adrian, zip-tying his wrists. Blanc, bleeding, chased a signal to the yacht's bridge, finding a console. Phoenix, global trigger. He hacked it, a New Orleans trick, stopping the crash at 1%. Harper's team swarmed, the drive outing Phoenix's cells. Clara's recording locked Adrian, but a screen flickered, E's air unknown. Blanc's phone buzzed. "Endgame's yours, Blanc. Who's left?" A crescent moon emoji, and a photo, a Miami rooftop, Julian, gun to his head, Lena's silhouette. Clara screamed, Harper cursed. Blanc, blooded, lit a cigar, staring at the bay. Adrian was E's architect, Lena its blade, but Julian was the pawn, and Phoenix was reborn. He'd solved the case, fast like always, but the shadow was moving, and the board wasn't clear. Chapter 13. The Final Crescent. The Miami night pulsed with sirens and salt, the Eclipse Key yacht a floating crime scene as FBI floodlights swept Biscayne Bay. Benoit Blanc stood on the dock, his arm bleeding from Adrian Vane's graze, his cigar unlit but gripped like a lifeline. The phone in his hand burned with Lena's latest taunt. A photo of Julian Ravenwood, gun to his head on a Miami rooftop. Her silhouette a dark promise, captioned "Endgame's yours, Blanc. Who's left?" The crescent moon emoji was Mr. E's final signature, but Lena, Amelia Vane's daughter, Adrian's niece, was only a blade. Clara Ravenwood, safe but fierce, clutched her recorder, its feed to the FBI crippling the Phoenix Protocol's market crash at 1%. The E's endgame drive, now with Agent Harper, named a new syndicate hub, Chicago, a cyber-attack nexus for Phoenix's final phase. Adrian was cuffed, the yacht secured, but Julian's life hung on Blanc's next move. Blanc lit the cigar, smoke curling like a vow. "Clara," he drawled, voice steady despite the pain. "That drive, any Chicago connections? Your father's ports, his deals?" Clara's hands steadied on the Miami ledger, her eyes fierce. "Father shipped through Chicago's Lake Michigan docks, mentioned a club, the Crescent Vale, said it was where the future's coded." Blanc's gaze pinned Javier Cruz, the Coast Guard defector, as he approached with a tablet. "Cruz Crescent Vale? Mean anything?" Cruz nodded, his scar glinting. "Syndicate front, downtown Chicago. Warehouse nearby. Cyber hub. Summits tonight, midnight. Signals live. Phoenix is there, and Julian." Blanc's heart surged. Chicago, steel, wind, the Syndicate's last fortress. The 1995 New Orleans file burned in his memory, named a Chicago hacker, Silas Gray, tied to Morrow's betrayal. Was Lena his pawn or master? "Harper," Blanc said, "we're heading north. Julian's alive and I'm bringing him back." The flight to O'Hare was a pressure cooker. The plane's roar no match for Blanc's racing thoughts. Clara uploaded her recordings to Harper's secure server, each clip a hammer to Phoenix's spine. Blanc studied the Miami photo, Julian's, fear, Lena's shadow, its rooftop unfamiliar but urban, Chicago's skyline a guess, Harper's burner buzzed. Feds traced Phoenix signal to Chicago's loop. Warehouse is a fortress. Servers, mercs. Crescent Vale's a syndicate den. Blanc prepped mid-flight, his drawl a razor. Chicago's a machine, cold, precise. Watch for crescent moons, screens, scars, codes. Clara, you're my eyes. Chicago's skyline loomed, its wind cutting through the dawn. Blanc led Clara to a safe house in Pilsen, a loft above a taqueria, courtesy of Mia Torres, a cyber analyst who'd hacked the syndicate in 2009. Mia, wiry with neon-tipped hair, spread server logs. "Crescent Vale's a black tie front," she said. "Warehouse next door's Phoenix's brain. Supercomputers. Global hack. Summit's hot. Lena's running it." Blanc's smile was grim. "Then we're unplugging her. Get us in." Mia forged IDs. Blanc as a Texas data broker, Clara as his coder. Harper's FBI team trailed, but Blanc kept them distant. "Lena smells feds," he said. "We glide, we gut." The sheriff, grounded in D.C., texted, "Feds ID'd Gray. Syndicate coder, linked to Vane, active in Chicago." Blanc prepped in, the loft, his voice steel. "This ain't Miami's flash. Chicago's gears grind. Clara, keep that recorder live." The Crescent Vale was a glass tower, its rooftop lounge a den of coded wealth. The summit, a tech gala, buzzed with syndicate, elite, hackers, CEOs, a general with a crescent cufflink. Blanc, in a tailored suit, moved like a mogul. Clara's blazer hiding her mic. A screen flashed Phoenix. Cyber collapse. Initiating targeting global banks. Blanc's eyes caught Lena on the rooftop. Julian bound beside her. A man nearby. Grey-haired. Silas Gray's eyes crescent watch glinting. Clara whispered, "Julian, and that's not Lena's uncle." Blanc's blood froze. Gray, the puppet master. "Stay close," he hissed, nudging her toward a service door, crescent keypad glowing. Clara's hand was steady, her recorder whirring. Blanc cracked the code, Gray 95, and they entered a server room, screens showing Phoenix, bank drain, active. A safe held a drive. Ease codex. Clara gasped. "They're stealing trillions. Now!" Blanc downloaded the drive, but a hum stopped him. Gray entered, gun raised, Lena beside him, Julian gagged. "Benoit," Gray said, voice silk. "You're late for the collapse." Blanc stepped forward, hands up. "Fine code, Silas. You built Phoenix, not Lena. Morrow's mentor, Vane's. Ghost, he's you." Gray's smile was ice. Is necessity. 95 you burned us. Now, I burn the world. Clara's recorder streamed to Mia, her hands steady. Lena smirked, but Julian kicked, loosening his gag. Clara, run! He shouted, alerting guards. Lena fired, clipping Blanc's shoulder. He dove, shoving Gray into a server, sparks flying. Clara tasered Lena, who screamed, dropping her gun. Blanc grabbed the drive, but Gray triggered a countdown. Phoenix, full reset, 2 minutes. Mia's cyber team breached, firewalls crashing. Clara tackled Lena, zip-tying her wrists. Blanc, bleeding, chased Gray to the rooftop, finding Julian free, fighting a guard. Blanc hacked the console, a New Orleans trick, stopping Phoenix at 0.1%. Harper's team swarmed, the drive outing Gray's cells. Clara's recording locked Lena, but Gray leaped for a chopper shouting, "He's eternal!" Blanc fired, clipping Gray's leg. The chopper crashed into the lake, flames rising. Lena laughed, cuffed. He was a tool. Ease me, Benoit. Always was. Clara freed Julian, sobbing. Blanc's phone buzzed. Crescent Falls Blanc. Who rises? A crescent moon emoji and a photo. His New Orleans safe house. A shadow inside. Harper cursed, but Blanc, blooded, lit a cigar, staring at the skyline. Gray was dead, Lena E's face, but Phoenix's shadow lingered. A coda, a ghost, tied to 95. He'd solved the case, fast, like always. But the whisper was alive, and the game had new players. Chapter 14. The echoes of E, the Chicago skyline, bled neon into the dawn, its wind carrying the sting of Silas Gray's chopper crash into Lake Michigan. Benoit Blanc stood on the Crescent Vale's rooftop, his shoulder oozing from Lena's. Gray's, his cigar unlit but clenched like a promise. Lena, unmasked as Mr. E's final face, was cuffed below. Her laughter, "Ease me, Benoit," always was. A hollow boast against the Phoenix Protocol's collapse. Clara Ravenwood, fierce and unbroken, clutched her recorder, its feed to the FBI shattering the syndicate's global cyber attack at 0.1%. Julian, rescued but haunted, held the boathouse map, its markers a graveyard of their journey. Maine to Chicago, each crossed out. Blanc's phone burned with a new taunt. A photo of his New Orleans safe house, a shadow inside captioned, "Crescent Falls Blanc. Who rises?" The crescent moon emoji was a ghost. But the syndicate's pulse lingered, and 1995's betrayal whispered louder than ever. Blanc lit the cigar, smoke curling like a spectre. "Clara," he drawled, voice steady despite the blood. "That safe house. Your father ever mention New Orleans hideouts? Vaults, allies?" Clara's hands steadied on the Chicago drive, her eyes sharp. "Father. He spoke of a safe house, French Quarter. Called it the Cradle. Said it was where he was born." Blanc's gaze pinned Julian, a blade through fog. "You, son? New Orleans secrets?" Julian's voice cracked, but he nodded. He mentioned a woman, Marie Laveau. Said she kept the cradle safe." Blanc's heart jolted. Marie Laveau, his hacker ally from 95, who ran the New Orleans safe house. The 95 file named her as Morrow's contact, but she'd sworn loyalty to Blanc after the betrayal. Was she E's cradle, or its keeper? Agent Harper approached, her face taut. "Phoenix is down," she said, "but we've got chatter. Syndicate's got a backup cell in New Orleans, French Quarter. Signals from a jazz club, the Crescent Echo. Your safe house is compromised." Blanc flicked ash, his smile grim. "Then we're going home. He's Encore's waiting." The flight to Louis Armstrong Airport was a tense spiral. The plane's hum drowned by Blanc's thoughts. Clara uploaded her recordings to Harper's server, each clip a stake in the syndicate's heart. Julian clutched the map, muttering about Marie. Blanc studied the safe house photo, its shadow too tall, too deliberate. The 95 file burned in his mind. Marie, Morrow, a deal gone sour. Was she playing both sides, or caught like him? Harper's burner buzzed. Feds traced signal to Crescent Echo. Clubs a front, basements a cyber vault. Summits tonight, 10 p.m. New Orleans greeted them with jazz and heat, its French Quarter a maze of revelry and rot. Blanc led Clara and Julian to a new safe house, a loft above a Creole diner, courtesy of Luc Dupont, a PI who dodged Syndicate, hits in '03. Luc, grizzled with a crescent scar, spread maps. "Crescent Echo's Syndicate Central," he said. "Basement's a server farm, running Phoenix, Echo Protocol. Marie's been seen there. Careful, Benoit." Blanc's eyes darkened. "Marie's mine. Get us in." Luc forged IDs. Blanc as a Cajun jazz promoter, Clara as his singer, Julian as a roadie. Harper's FBI team trailed, but Blanc kept them at bay. "Marie smells law," he said. "We blend, we break." The sheriff, still in D.C., texted, "Feds ID'd Echo Protocol. Syndicate's last gasp. Data theft from global grids." Blanc prepped. In the loft, his drawl steel. "This ain't Chicago steel. New Orleans sings, bleeds. Watch for crescent moons, notes, scars, lights. Clara, your recorder's our requiem." The Crescent Echo was a smoky haven, its jazz raw and walls etched with crescent moons. The summit, a private show, pulsed with syndicate dregs. Hackers, smugglers, a consul with a crescent ring. Blanc, in a velvet jacket, moved like a maestro. Clara's dress hiding her mic, Julian's cap hiding panic. A pianist, her fingers dancing, wore a crescent pendant. Blanc's eyes caught Marie Laveau in the crowd, dreads framing a face too calm, her crescent tattoo faint but there. Clara whispered, "Marie, she's with them." Blanc's blood chilled. "Or playing deep. Stay close," he hissed, nudging them toward a basement door, crescent lock glowing. Clara's hand was steady, Julian's not. Blanc cracked the lock, Laveau 95, and they entered a cyber vault. Servers humming with Echo Protocol. Data heist active. A safe held a drive. E's cradle. Julian gasped. "They're stealing. Everything, banks, governments, now." Blanc downloaded the drive, but a note faltered. Marie entered, gun raised, pendant glinting. "Benoit," she said, voice soft but cold. "You're late for the cradle." Blanc stepped forward, hands up. "Fine game, Marie. You built E with Morrow, didn't you? Kept the cradle safe, spun me in 95? Her smile was a wound. E was survival. Morrow betrayed us, but I rebuilt. Echo's my child. Clara's recorder streamed to Luc, her hands steady. Julian, panicking, tipped a server, alerting guards. Marie fired, grazing Blanc's hip. He dove, shoving her into a console, sparks flying. Clara tasered a guard. Julian tackled another, finding spine. Blanc grabbed the drive, but Marie triggered a timer. Echo. Global wipe, 3 minutes. Luke's PI team breached, guns blazing. Clara tackled Marie, zip-tying her wrists. Blanc, bleeding, chased a signal to the club's stage, finding a laptop. Echo, full trigger. He hacked it, a New Orleans trick, stopping the heist at 0.0%. Harper's team swarmed, the drive outing Echo's cells. Clara's recording locked Marie, but a screen flickered. Ease air, unknown. Blanc's phone buzzed. Crescents. Gone, Blanc. Who's next? A crescent moon emoji and a video. His Kentucky cabin, rebuilt, a figure inside. Clara gasped. Julian froze. Blanc, bloodied, lit a cigar, staring at the stage. Marie was E's cradle, Lena its blade, but the air was new. A shadow from 95, watching. He'd solved the case, fast, like always, but the echo was alive, and the song wasn't over. Chapter 15. The Kentucky Reckoning. The French Quarter's jazz faded into a humid dawn. The Crescent Echo Club now a federal cordon, its basement servers silenced under FBI floodlights. Benoit Blanc stood by the club's crescent moon carving, his hips stinging from Marie Laveau's graze, his cigar unlit but gripped like a vow. Marie, revealed as E's cradle, was cuffed. Her confession, "Echo's my child." A half-truth against the Echo Protocol's collapse. Clara Ravenwood, steely despite the war, clutched her recorder, its feed to the FBI dismantling the syndicate's data heist at 0.01%. Julian, haunted but resolute, held the boathouse map, its markers a trail of blood from Maine to New Orleans. Blanc's phone burned with a new taunt. A video of his Kentucky cabin, rebuilt from its ashes, a figure moving inside, captioned, "Crescent's gone, Blanc. Who's next?" The crescent moon emoji was a ghost, but the syndicate's shadow lingered, and 1995's New Orleans betrayal roared back. Blanc lit the cigar, smoke curling like a noose. "Clara," he drawled, voice steady despite the blood. "That cabin. Your father ever mention Kentucky hideouts? Lodges, allies?" Clara's hands steadied on the New Orleans drive, her eyes fierce. "Father. He spoke of a safe house near the Cumberland Gap, called it the Last Crescent, said it was where debts end." Blanc's gaze pinned Julian, sharp as a Kentucky blade. "You, son? Cumberland secrets?" Julian's voice trembled but held. He took me there as a kid. A cabin, not yours, hidden in a holler. Said it was where we settle scores." Blanc's heart surged. The Cumberland Gap, his home, where his cabin's ashes once lay. The 95 New Orleans file named a Kentucky contact, Eleanor Holt, a fixer tied to Morrow's network, vanished after the betrayal. Was she the figure, E's last heir? Agent Harper approached, her face grim. "Echo's down," she said, "but we've got chatter. Syndicate's got a remnant in Kentucky, Cumberland Gap. Signals from a lodge, Crescent Hollow. Your cabin's the epicenter." Blanc flicked ash, his smile grim. "Then we're settling scores. Book us to Louisville." The flight to Kentucky was a tense coil. The plane's hum no match for Blanca's racing thoughts. Clara uploaded her recordings to Harper's server, each clip a nail in the syndicate's coffin. Julian clutched the map, muttering about the holler. Blanc studied the cabin video, its figure too deliberate, too familiar. The 95 file burned. Holt, Morrow's silent partner, a shadow who'd slipped him. Was she E's final face? Harper's burner buzzed. Feds traced signal to Crescent. Hollow. Lodge is a bunker. Servers mercs. Summits tonight, 11 p.m. Kentucky's hills rolled under a humid dusk. The Cumberland Gap, a maze of green and ghosts. Blanc led Clara and Julian to a motel near his rebuilt cabin. A base Harper secured. The cabin stood intact. Its new wood. A lie. The figure gone, but a crescent moon carved on the door. Harper met them, her dossier thick. Crescent Hollow's a fortress, she said, spreading maps. Syndicates running Crescent Requiem. A localized VX-7 strike, targeting Louisville's water supply. Holt's name's on the lease. Blanc's eyes darkened. Then we're knocking. Get us in. Harper forged IDs. Blanc as a local distiller, Clara as his manager, Julian as a driver. The sheriff, freed from D.C., joined, his NYPD grit steady. Blanc prepped in the motel, his drawl a blade. This ain't New Orleans jazz. Kentucky's roots run deep, dark. Watch for crescent moons, carvings, eyes, dust. Clara, your recorder's our torch. Crescent Hollow loomed in a holler, its log facade hiding steel gates. The summit, a private retreat, buzzed with syndicate dregs. Mercs, coders, mayor with a crescent watch. Blanc, in a flannel suit, moved like a native. Clara's jacket hiding her mic. Julian's cap hiding fear. A crate, marked with a crescent moon, hummed, VX-7 rigged. Blanc's eyes caught a woman by the lodges, hearth, older. Eleanor Holt's sharp eyes, crescent pendant glinting. Clara whispered, she's not Lena, older. Blanc's blood froze. Holt, he's architect. Stay close, he hissed, nudging them toward a basement door. Crescent lock glowing. Clara's hand was steady, Julian's not. Blanc cracked the lock, Holt 95, and they entered a bunker. Servers humming with Requiem. Water taint, active. A safe held a drive. E's testament. Julian gasped. They're poisoning Louisville. Tonight. Blanc downloaded the drive, but a creak stopped him. Holt entered, gun raised, pendant swinging. Benoit, she purred, voice like gravel. You're late for the reckoning. Blanc stepped forward, hands up. Fine play, Eleanor. You birthed E with Morrow, didn't you? Ran the shadows in 95? Rebuilt the crescent? Her smile was a scar. E was order. You broke us, Benoit. Requiem's my reply. Clara's recorder streamed to Harper, her hands steady. Julian, panicking, tipped a crate, alerting mercs. Holt fired, grazing Blanc's chest. He dove, shoving her into a server, sparks flying. Clara tasered a merc. Julian tackled another, finding courage. Blanc grabbed the drive, but Holt triggered a timer. VX-7 canisters, waterbound, 3 minutes. Dunshire. Sheriff's team breached, guns blazing. Clara tackled Holt, zip-tying her wrists. Blanc, bleeding, chased a signal to the lodge's roof, finding a console. Requiem, full trigger. He hacked it, a New Orleans trick, stopping the taint at 0.00%. Harper's team swarmed, the drive outing Requiem's cells. Clara's recording locked Holt. But a screen flickered. E's legacy, unknown. Blanc's phone buzzed. Crescent's dust, Blanc. Who's left? A crescent moon emoji, and a photo. His old New Orleans partner, Luc Dupont, alive in a Paris café. Clara gasped. Julian froze. Blanc, blooded, lit a cigar, staring at the hills. Holt was E's route, Lena its blade, but Luke, his 95 ally, presumed dead, was the shadow, watching. He'd solved the case, fast, like always, but the Eud reckoning was his, and Paris was calling. Chapter 16. The Last Moon's Light. The Cumberland Gap's dusk settled over Kentucky's hills. The Crescent Hollow Lodge, a smouldering ruin under FBI floodlights, its VX-7 canisters neutralized. Benoit Blanc stood by his rebuilt cabin, the crescent moon carving on its door a fresh scar, his chest stinging from Eleanor Holt's graze. His cigar glowed, a lone spark against the night, but his mind burned hotter. Luc Dupont, his 95 New Orleans partner, alive in a Paris café, as shown in the taunting photo captioned Crescent's Dust, Blanc, who's left? Holt, the syndicate's route, was cuffed. Her Crescent requiem stopped, but Luke's shadow, E's final heir, tied back to the betrayal that broke Blanc. Clara Ravenwood, fierce but weary, clutched her recorder, its feed to the FBI shattering the syndicate's Louisville plot. Julian, resolute despite his ghosts, held the boathouse map, its markers a trail of ash. The Crescent Syndicate was dead, but Luke was its echo. Blanc flicked the cigar, his drawl cutting the silence. "Clara," he said, blood crusting his shirt, "your father, any Paris ties? Friends' debts?" Clara's hands steadied on the Kentucky, drive, her eyes sharp. "Father. He met a man in Paris years ago, called him the Ghost, said he tied loose ends." Blanc's gaze pinned Julian. "A Kentucky blade. You, son?" Paris whispers. Julian's voice held firm. He mentioned a café, Lune d'Argent. Said it was where the Crescent closed." Blanc's pulse surged. Lune d'Argent, Paris's underbelly, a syndicate haunt in 95. The New Orleans file named Luke as Morrow's confidant, presumed dead after a car bomb Blanc blamed himself for. Was Luke E's ghost tying the Crescent? Agent Harper approached, her face etched with fatigue. "Requiem's done," she said, "but we've got a signal. Paris, Latin Quarter. Café's a front, basement's a syndicate vault. Luc Dupont's alive, Benoit." Blanc's smile was grim. "Then we're closing the Crescent. Book us to Paris." The flight to Charles de Gaulle was a tense vault, the plane's hum no match for Blanc's racing thoughts. Clara uploaded her recordings to Harper's server, each clip a tombstone for the syndicate. Julian clutched the map, muttering about ghosts. Blanc studied the Paris photo. Luke's silhouette, too sharp, too alive. The 95 file burned. Luke, Morrow, Holt. A triangle of trust Blanc broke. Was Luke E's final play, or its victim? Harper's burner buzzed. Feds traced signal to Lune d'Argent. Café's a syndicate relic. Servers, codes. Summits tonight, midnight. Paris greeted them with rain and stone. Its Latin Quarter, a maze of light and lies. Blanc led Clara and Julian to a safe house above a boulangerie, courtesy of Sophie Renaud, a DGSE agent who'd hunted the syndicate in '07. Sophie, lean with a crescent scar, spread blueprints. "Lune d'Argent's a ghost den," she said. "Basement's a cyber vault, running Crescent finale, data leak to destabilize NATO. Luke's there." Blanc's eyes darkened. "Then we're ending his haunt. Get us in." Sophie forged IDs, Blanc as a Bordeaux vintner, Clara as his sommelier, Julian as a courier. Harper's FBI team trailed, but the sheriff, now in Paris, led comms. Blanc prepped in the safe house, his drawl a blade. "This ain't Kentucky's roots. Paris is smoke, mirrors. Watch for crescent moons, cups, scars, stars. Clara, your recorders are light." Lune d'Argent was a velvet trap, its cafe tables hiding a summit of syndicate ghosts. Spies, coders, a minister with a crescent pin. Blanc, in a tailored coat, moved like a patron. Clara's scarf hiding her mic, Julian's cap hiding fear. A waiter, his tray flashing a crescent ring, served Luke at a corner table. Older, scarred, but Luke alive. Blanc's heart clenched, his friend, his failure. Clara whispered, "That's him, your partner." Blanc's blood froze. "Stay close," he hissed, nudging them toward a basement stair, crescent lock glowing. Clara's hand was steady, Julian's not. Blanc cracked the lock, DuPont 95, and they entered a vault. Servers, humming with finale, NATO leak active. A safe held a drive, E's Requiem. Julian gasped. "They're exposing everything. Treaties, agents now." Blanc downloaded the drive, but a clink stopped him. Luke entered, gun raised, ring glinting. "Benoit," he said, voice a wound. "You're late for my grave." Blanc stepped forward, hands up. "Fine ghost, Luke. You built E after 95, didn't you? Took Morrow's fall, spun the crescent?" Luke's smile was ash. "E was justice. You left me to burn, Benoit. Finale's my fire." Clara's recorder streamed to Sophie, her hands steady. Julian, panicking, tipped a server, alerting guards. Luke fired, grazing Blanc's neck. He dove, shoving Luke into a console, sparks flying. Clara tasered a guard. Julian tackled another, finding grit. Blanc grabbed the drive, but Luke triggered. A timer. Finale. Full leak. 2 minutes. The sheriff's team breached, guns blazing. Clara tackled Luke, zip-tying his wrists. Blanc, bleeding, chased a signal to the cafe's roof, finding a laptop. Finale. Trigger. He hacked it, a New Orleans trick, stopping the leak at 0.1%. Sophie's team swarmed, the drive outing Finale's cells. Clara's recording locked Luke, but a screen flickered. E's end unknown. Blanc's phone buzzed. Moon set, Blanc. Dawn's mine. A crescent moon emoji. And a photo, his mother's old locket, lost in 95 on a Paris street. Clara gasped. Julian froze. Blanc, blooded, lit a cigar, staring at the Seine. Luke was Ede's ghost. Holt, its root. But the locket, his family, his past, was a new player, watching. He'd solved the case, fast, like always. But the light was dim, and the dawn was someone else's.